Nubbinwood started out as a character for a live action short, or for an animated short that I had written, and I needed, just in the process of coming up with the idea for the feature film that I wrote, I needed a character for him, so I created my own little star, and it turned into my way of introducing the world to the star of a movie that I hope to make someday.
So talk to me about this feature-length version for this beaver. What was that all about?
So I was working as an animator, and when I finished a project that I was working on, I went and I talked to the director. He met with me, and he was very nice. And I said, "Hey, I got this idea for a short film I wanted to make." And he said, "Don't make the short, just make the feature." And I thought that was a little bit rich coming from a director who had just directed an animated movie. But for the next 10 years, I was working as an animator, and as I was working as an animator, I was kind of just adding on to this feature that I wanted to write, and the feature is really an extended version of the short that I had written. And when I had finished the feature, I sat there going, great, I've got a feature script written. Nobody's going to even read this, because animation is so hard to make that usually the animated scripts that people make come from within a studio, and they're not looking outside that much. So I was like, well, what do I do next? So the next course of action was, well, I have to make a character that stars in this movie, so why don't I just go ahead and do that? And after a while, I just ended up with the character. But the feature is the long goal. It's the marathon, and I feel like the documentary that I made is really kind of just the sprint to kind of get it all started.
So making this documentary, you just mentioned it is a process to get you to the feature. Did you learn a lot in making this documentary that you feel is going to be a useful tool when that feature finally comes along?
Kind of not. Interestingly enough, because it's only a character, and because the documentary was shot in a way that was very few camera setups, not very cinematic really, because documentaries aren't that cinematic. I think the only thing that I really can take away from it was I think I really understand the character now more than I've ever understood him. And that kind of is, I feel like I've known him for 2.5 years since I started doing it. I think he's evolved. I kind of just know him, and I think it's kind of fun to go to festivals and introduce him to other people and have them like him as much as I kind of have grown to like him. But yeah, generally for the feature, the feature's a feature, so it's a completely different set of it's a different methodology for how to make it. But I have the story and I have the character, so I feel like, eventually something has to happen, maybe, I don't know.
You mentioned that you love to share this with audiences at film festivals. How do you choose which film festivals to take Nubbinwood to?
Early on, it was just sort of like a random thing. I've gotten a lot more selective about it. I think I've researched them. So if I look at a film festival and it has like a family program, I will enter it because it does very well with family programs. I've even won a couple awards. If it has an animation block associated with it, I'll try that, but actually I haven't been that lucky with animation blocks, interestingly enough. And if it's so like this festival, I think it was because I was looking at, I looked at the program from a previous year, and I said, do I consider my film to be like that, or does it seem to fit in that same vein where you'll take it? You always try to shoot high, you always try to shoot low, just for ego reasons. But I was looking at it, if I think I have a really good shot at it, I'll enter it. And if I don't have a really good shot at it, I won't put as much effort into it, but there's still some that I try that I know that I'm never going to get into. But yeah, there's a lot of research that goes into it, especially because it's animation. I want to make sure that animation, especially 3D animation, is welcome. There are a lot of festivals that have animation, but they're 2D, hand-drawn, stop-motion stuff. So if I don't see a program that has 3D animation in it, I just skip it because they're just not very friendly to 3D animation.
That is really smart. I like that you actually take the time to research each festival instead of just buckshot submitting. I think that's really smart. We also have a lot of folks who are watching this that are thinking about getting into animation or thinking about getting into documentaries or filmmaking in general. What advice would you give somebody who's just saying, how do I even get started?
I get asked this question about animation all the time. What I've done in this documentary by myself is very difficult, and it has been the culmination of 20 years. Like, for me to sit down and just do it, I just did it because I had all these skills. If you want to get into animation, you have to be me 20 years ago. You have to sit down and start doing it. and eventually you'll get a skill, and then it goes to another skill, and it goes to another skill. I think if you're going to do a live action thing, I think you should just grab a camera and just start doing it. It's like, and be prepared to be bad at it in the beginning. And just, I feel like if you treat it as something precious, you're never going to get anywhere. So just get through a first one, and then get through a second one, or get partially through one and say, this isn't working, I'm going to go to the next one, whatever. But it's sort of like just the, every journey starts with a single step, that kind of thing, is just start it and then see where it goes.